Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you I've yet to meet, my name is Tracy Cook and I'm ProKids Executive Director. And I have a question I'd really like you to think about this morning. What's fun? Now, I often greet people with this question about what brings them joy in their life, and there are a variety of responses. Everything from exciting trips to huge challenges at work. Some people are so overwhelmed they literally can't think of anything. But the happiest people always have the same thing in common. They tell me what's fun is a child that they cherish. Now, what does it mean to cherish? It means to hold dear, to cultivate with care and affection. So why does cherishing a child bring us so much joy? Well, it's as simple as the power of a child looking up at you with a smile that simply warms your soul, a child's laughter, a child's sweetness as they put their hand in yours, a child's discovery, experiencing something for the very first time, and a child's mastery, watching them learn things like crawling, walking, running, and to understand math by grade school that you struggled to comprehend in high school and still aren't quite sure of today. But the most lasting joy of cherishing a child comes from seeing them grow into a person that the world is lucky to have. You pour your love and care into this child, and now they're ready to carry your love and ideals far into the future. Now, I think you'll agree, every child deserves someone who cherishes them and the details of their lives. Someone who not only loves them for who they are, but who they will become. If you're lucky like me, you were cherished as a child. My family took care of me, protected me, and taught me. One of the most important lessons they taught was that justice was worth fighting for. My father says as a small child, I would regularly stomp my foot and exclaim, "That's not fair." So maybe this is what led me to ProKids. ProKids exists because of children right here in Cincinnati who've been abused and neglected so severely that they've been taken from their families. In Hamilton County alone, over 2,500 children are in the foster care system each year. ProKids' vision is a safe, permanent, and nurturing home for every child. We work to achieve this vision by mobilizing our community to break a very vicious cycle of abuse and neglect. We recruit, train, and support community volunteers to speak up for them and guide them to safe environments where they can truly thrive. Since 1981, ProKids has served thousands of children. Like you, someone introduced me to ProKids. That was 22 years ago. I began volunteering and a year later joined the staff as an attorney. I stay committed to this work because of our amazing children. What did the children you'll hear about this morning all have in common? A ProKids CASA volunteer, a court-appointed special advocate working with a staff supervisor known as a CASA manager. With the support of a ProKids attorney, they're a powerful team for our children. And together, they advocate passionately and persuasively, gathering information and making recommendations to the court, which determines our children's futures. Our court is the Hamilton County Juvenile Court, and it is recognized nationally as a model. Now, just to be clear, we don't do this work alone. ProKids volunteers and staff work closely with all sorts of busy, hardworking professionals from every system that touches a child's life. CASA volunteers are amazing people. They bring the gifts of time, common sense, and caring. They're on the front line every day visiting our children, calling social workers, therapists, teachers, and working with all of these individuals to create plans to get children to the safe, permanent, and nurturing homes they deserve. We also work to create alliances within the child protection system to maximize outcomes for our children. We want everyone to pull together for our kids. Now, in this work, it's almost like we're coaching people in a race. These children and their families are completely overwhelmed by dysfunction, a cycle of abuse and neglect that has typically spanned generations. ProKids CASAs and staff intervene in every way possible to see that families and children cross the finish line together. Now, this is a race against time because childhood is unbelievably short. And it's uphill because this vicious cycle is very hard to break. To avoid children absorbing the life lesson of violence and neglect and repeating it with their own children. Unfortunately, some families don't end the race together. Some parents don't ever learn to live differently. Some drop out and let their children move ahead without them, but others actually drag their children back. We recently got the court's decision on a case involving 3 young children, and when it began, the mother was addicted to heroin. Years before, the father had been determined by the county to have sexually abused a child. Their children were placed in foster care, and the mother faded over time, eventually not even visiting her kids. The father fought for years in court to have the children returned to him, even as the oldest daughter, Tracy, bravely revealed his repeated sex abuse of her and her baby sister, even as he failed to acknowledge or gain any insight and treatment about the emotional scars he inflicted on his children. He did not learn to live differently. As a team, ProKids CASA manager, CASA, and ProKids attorney visited the children, investigated, and advocated for healing services, and fought in and out of court to keep Chelsea and her siblings from being returned to their father. Ultimately, we had a very tough, dramatic trial about who should raise the children, and the court terminated parental rights, freeing the children for the possibility of adoption. Just recently, I had the pure joy of attending the adoption finalization of Chelsea and her brother and sister. So, I want to show you. This is the court's decree of adoption from that day. The children were literally beaming, so excited to be adopted by their foster care family and to finally have the forever family they had always longed for. Now, ProKids advocacy team worked long and hard together to make sure that these children's best interests were served. And it's simply impossible for me to explain the reward of seeing children safe who once were not. I also struggle to find the words to express the joy of seeing a family who crossed the finish line together. James, a sweet baby boy, and his mother lived in a car after his father went to jail. When the weather got cold last year, they had nowhere to go. James was placed in foster care and assigned a ProKids advocacy team who advocated in court for lots of visitation for James and his mom so their bond would stay strong. They checked on Mom's progress toward building a new life, called on ProKids volunteer resource team to help furnish Mom's new apartment, and visited the daycare that would care for James while Mom was at work. Ultimately, they advocated for James' reunification with his mom when it became clear she was building a better life for the two of them. ProKids volunteers, our staff, and supporters have stood up and said, "I am for the child." They say, "I am for the child who's fearful and anxious because she never knows when she might be hit, is hungry and is left alone, and who worries about who Mom will bring home. I am for the child who feeds, bathes, clothes, and protects his little brothers and sisters. I am for the child who's been taken from the only family she has ever known, who moves from home to home, belongings in a garbage bag, and who is still waiting for a chance at a childhood." Now, it was amazingly inspiring this morning to see more than 30 community volunteers stand up and say, "I am for the child." After they took their oath as CASA volunteers, they delivered a picture of a child to some of the tables. Why didn't everyone get one? Because today there are so many foster care children right here in Hamilton County still waiting for the community's help. As long as these children are simply the responsibility of the system, we as the community don't see them or treat them as our own. And children like Chelsea won't be in the kind of safe, permanent, and nurturing home every child deserves. And because of that, the cycle will continue. Why? Because the foster care system is overburdened and was designed to meet the needs of children for a very short time, not to raise them. It is more important now to invest than it's ever been due to deep cuts in the child protection system. About 1 out of 3 Hamilton County Jobs and Family Services staff have been laid off. Their budget is half of what it was just a few years ago. And these cuts couldn't come at a worse time when even more children are entering the system. These children have been traumatized. not only by abuse and neglect, but also by the loss of everyone they hold dear. There are so many unanswered questions for them. How will this trauma affect them? Will they self-destruct? Will they lash out? Or will they heal? Will we take action today? Or will we leave it to the next generation to deal with the aftermath? The truth is, it's not an agency or a system that cares for our children. It's a committed community. Now, ProKids' committed community has opened their eyes and their hearts to our children. They understand the plight of children in foster care, and they know to have an impact, they have to act. Since we began telling ProKids' story and asking for your help, you've shown us what's possible. Thanks to our Friends of Children's Society members who've made a multi-year pledge to ProKids and all of our supporters, we've been able to add additional passionate and dedicated staff members and volunteers. We deeply appreciate your support. Our supporters understand that mobilizing the community to help these children is highly effective. We've doubled the number of children we serve. Last year, 181 CASA volunteers spoke up for 533 children. And best of all, abuse and neglect stopped for 99% of the children we served in 2013, a rate we've maintained for more than a decade. There's a lot more to do, and our urgent goal is to get the community's help to all the children in need. Reaching this vision means breaking a cycle of abuse and neglect that has spanned generations and creating a new cycle of growing up safe and confident. But how do we get there? With more people spreading the word about our children, with more volunteers stepping forward to serve, and with more staff to train and guide them. For $2,500 a year, we can provide each child with a ProKids advocacy team. Now, I'm sure that this piece of paper that grants the adoption of Chelsea and her siblings doesn't look like much to you, but to me, pure joy. I asked you earlier to think about that question. What's fun? What brings you joy? And I bet it's a child at the center of your life. The thing is, we can cherish the child at the center of our lives, and we can cherish the idea that every child should have a real shot at a happy childhood and a fulfilling life. We can hold dear our baby and the principle that every child should be invested in. In fact, if we really cherish the child at the center of our life, we will also hold in our hearts the children who are not so lucky, for we're all part of the same community. Our children are just like the child at the center of your life. And doesn't every child deserve to have someone who says, I'm for this child? Would all the CASAs in the room please stand? I want to thank you for giving our children a voice, and I hope everyone here today will join them and say, I am for the child. Thank you so much.